Normally at the start of every show, we have our guests introduce themselves. Unfortunately, Carl forgot to do that this past time. If they would have introduced themselves, it would have looked a little something like this.
I'm Jack Hawksworth.
And I'm Shaggy. And this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny. Brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Welcome to The Skinny. We have an exciting show coming your way. Ken Stout and Michael Young sitting alongside once again. Michael Young getting pretty comfortable in that chair over there, my friend, as Rico has been out and about around the country, but
my arse
we
still
like
can't,
you, man. We like you.
It still can't fill the void, but I'm trying. I'm trying.
The countertop's nice and
Correct.
clean. Not as clean as it usually is, but
it's clean.
But it's nice and clean. So Michael Young will join me here today. Two great guests here sitting alongside. One, a very talented race car driver, picked his way up through the ranks from karting up into open wheels, drove for Sam Schmidt there for a while. Also won a championship or two along the way, made his way up into IndyCar, currently driving in sports cars, and actually won a championship in 2020. I believe it was the Sprint X Championship. So we're going to talk to Jack Hawksworth, who has joined us here in the studio. And sitting alongside is a name that you probably are not familiar with, but I will tell you that wherever he has been, wins have followed. And it doesn't matter what series it might be in. It could be short course off-road racing. It could be NHRA drag racing. It could be sports cars, the 24 Hours of Daytona a number of times, NASCAR. It doesn't seem to matter, but wherever this guy goes, the brand tends to win. We call him Shaggy, affectionately known as Shaggy. So he's I don't even know what your title actually is.
Or his real name, for Pete's sake.
Well, I know his real name, but he likes to go incognito, and we know him as Shaggy. He's our friend of Shaggy. So the ones that need to know will know, and that's all that really matters. But great to have Shaggy with us. And we're going to be dead serious in this show. There's not going to be a whole lot of playing around, and I want to kick this thing off in the right direction because right off the bat, people don't realize Shaggy's talents. He's also an inventor. So in the theme of staying serious, I want to ask him about his light bulbs in the microwave. Off the bat, I mean, what's going on with light bulbs in a microwave, my friend?
Yeah, it's an experiment that we did. I think we were racing maybe Indy cars up in Sonoma quite a few years back, and maybe a couple of adult beverages into the evening. A few of us decided to pull all the light bulbs we could find out of all our rooms in a hotel, put them in the microwave and turn the microwave on, and they actually do start flashing. And eventually a couple of them pop, but the tungsten ones go really good. So, yeah. Not an invention, but certainly a lot of fun doing it. And it's on YouTube as well, you'll find it, yeah.
So he's the Keith Moon of the Who in the racing world. He's the hotel room destroyer.
Potentially.
Potentially.
He's invented a lot of things. I certainly am not aware of all of the inventions, but I think one of them is a leaf blower office chair, if I'm not mistaken. So he's spun that one around quite literally a couple of times. Shaggy's a lot of fun, man. He's a hoot. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, good to see you, man. All
yeah, cheers for having us. Looking forward to it. Should be good.
So, if you guys haven't watched Pinky Blinders yet, Jack is clearly one of the characters on Pinky Blinders. So if you struggle listening to these guys, we'll put it together. We had both of them on here, and I can understand Shaggy most of the time. So we put Shaggy right next to Jack.
I actually find that a little bit offensive because I think Peaky Blinders is Birmingham area.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Yeah, you got it wrong.
Are they like Irish or Scots or are they
They're English. They're English.
They're English.
Ozzy Osbourne style, yeah. All right, like Sharon!
I will say, when Jack was running an IndyCar, I always thought it was great because I thought the world of Jack when he was running an open wheel, and I always would get deathly terrified when I interviewed him because I would ask a question and he'd get very in-depth with an answer, and then I'd start not understanding what he was saying. I'm like, my God, if I ask him another question and he's already answered it, what do I do? Yeah. So I had to dance around a little bit because sometimes when he gets comfortable, your accent to me was always the toughest out of anybody.
Yeah, I think it's even worse when I'm at home. Like when I'm over here, I'm trying to speak clearly, but oh my God, you get me at home with a lot of Bradford lads and wouldn't understand the damn word I'm saying, I don't think. So yeah, I don't know, that northern twang.
So what's interesting is the more I just got involved with the Ted Lasso show. So for me, that is my introduction to the world of not only football, but of the accent and everything. Is that true to your country, to England?
I've actually not. I've heard a lot about the.
You've
Ted
never
Lasso.
watched it either
No,
of
but
you?
everybody keeps telling me.
I've not seen it either, mate. No.
But apparently really good, right?
It's
Like,
a
lot of people have
fantastic
told
show.
me,
I
yeah.
started watching football, soccer, here in the States.
You were good with football.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And because of the show, it's just been very interesting. The whole culture around football is interesting to me. And is it as passionate for you guys when you were growing up there? Was that something that football was it? Football is life?
I mean, for me, growing up at school, yeah, that was, every time you had a, break or recess or whatever you guys call it over here, it was, football in the playground and everyone had their team. And if it was non-uniform day, you were turning up in Bradford City shirts.
You were right there as well, man.
You might have to cut that out, Carl. I'm not real sure if that was legal or not.
Or Liverpool shirt or whatnot. So it was always big. It was always big back then. I mean, even today. I mean, I don't follow it as hardcore as I used to, but like everybody's got the team, and it's part of being born in England, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Well, I went to a different type of school and area than Jack did, so we played rugby and cricket. But still a big football fan for sure, yeah.
You must have gone to a posh school then if they were playing rugby and cricket.
Well, not particularly postural, no. That's all we could manage, but it was fun. Yeah,
So,
but
so on an
football,
off note, I get rugby. Explain the cricket thing to me. The whole, it doesn't make a lot of
it
sense.
can go on for 3 days.
Right.
Are you chasing crickets? Like, what do you hurt them?
No, it's like
You going
baseball
fishing
with
them, or?
That would be more exciting than cricket, in my opinion.
it's like baseball with a flat bat. All right.
But it lasts for three
I might
freaking
be able
days.
to hit the ball with a flat bat.
Well, except the guy he takes about half-mile run up before he throws the ball at you. He doesn't even have to bounce, and you just try and hit it or dodge it and not break anything.
And you just run back and forth as many times as you can.
Before the ball comes back and hits the. It's kind of like baseball, yeah.
Not even close. It takes 3 days.
Simpler version.
Yeah. Okay.
Help
me out, Jack.
Like the Robin Williams skit on golf. And
There is like
how many
quick
times do you
cricket, though,
do
isn't
that?
there?
One
Like the
time?
20,
No,
20 or whatever it's
18
called.
times.
That must be new.
I think there's like a one-day thing you can do with cricket, which doesn't take as long.
Do you like cricket?
I hate cricket. Yeah, no interest whatsoever. Rather watch paint dry, I think.
So we had Jack Harvey on here, and we did a little research on him, and he comes from this little town where literally I think there was only 2 pubs, right?
Two pubs.
And Michael rattled off both of them, and as soon as he said the one pub, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's the one right there. That's where all my mates go. Whenever I go home, that's the one that I go to." So did you guys come from a small town like that? Same way, just 1 or 2 local pubs in the small village.
I don't know if it's a small town as Harvey, because Harvey's like comes across as a bit of a farmer to me. Like, I just imagine him with his flat cap and his shotgun. He's shooting clay pigeons and stuff, right? So I was from just outside of Bradford, which is a pretty big city. But yeah, we had kind of a local pub and whatnot, and then there was like the local nightclub. As soon as you turned 17, you were down in it. So, but maybe not quite as local as Jack, I don't think. He's definitely Lincoln. Is he from?
Lincoln.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle of.
Warm beer or cold beer?
Well, yeah.
I mean, when you were over there, I mean,
Room temperature for the ales is the way you should do it. But I've been over here so long now that cold beers is the norm and it makes sense. And going back over there and drinking warm beer is kind of a little bit, what the hell was that? but my town was Peterborough. I was brought up in Peterborough.
And I would have to think that actually initiated just because there wasn't ice boxes or whatever back in the day. They just got used to drinking room temperature.
I think they were just too damn lazy, actually.
So when you guys came to the States, what was the biggest shock for you when you first got here? Was there one cultural thing? Shaggy, obviously you came over a lot sooner than Jack did. Was there one big thing that when you got here you said, my God, I can't believe, that here I am in the States and this is completely different?
2 big things. So driving on the wrong side of the road was a bit of a pain.
Well, you guys drive on the wrong side of the road.
You should have been used to it, right? Driving on the wrong side of the road.
No, we drive on the right side of the road. And then the second thing is traffic lights in Texas. Okay, so I'm colorblind, red-green. And we go to a race in Texas. I'm driving the SUV with a whole track support crew in it. And they hang these traffic lights sideways. And I couldn't, of course, I know red's at the top and green's at the bottom. Had no clue. And almost put the whole of TRD's track support guys through the windshield. So that was my biggest concern. I got used to it in the end. But
There's
about
more
you?
rental car stores
yeah.
and maybe around Daytona,
Sure.
but we'll talk about those another time.
What about you, Jack, when you got here?
Well, I mean, biggest thing is just how much space you guys have out here, right? Like, it's just, everything's so far apart. You have so much land. Coming from the UK, it's heavily populated. Everything is walking distance, and public transport, you can pretty much use it to get anywhere. I remember coming to the States for the first time and realizing you have to have a car out here. Yeah. There's no other way to get around. So just the sheer size of it, and I think that it's that's why you can. I think the racing and stuff is big out here in many ways because of there's places to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's you can have a racetrack in because there's space for one. Same with like dirt bike tracks, all that kind of stuff. So just coming here and just the sheer size of the damn place compared to I guess Europe.
And in the interest of fair reporting, you still live in the UK.
Yeah, so I've kind of, I guess, gone between a little bit the last few years. So I did have a place in Charlotte last year. Obviously, when
you had to come once you got here. You kind of had to stay here, right? You weren't going to go back and forth.
Yeah, it was difficult, and there's always a risk, obviously, with going back. And are you going to get back in or not? And last year, especially, everything was so new and unknown at that point that it was a risk. Yeah. So I had a place last year. Here and then this year I've not had a place in the US, but to be honest, I've spent so much time here. I've practically been a resident at the Homewood Suites in Concord this year. So I think next year I will get an apartment here again, but I've still got a place in England as well. So yeah, just kind of between both places really. I wouldn't really say I even have a home at the minute. It's just kind of living out of a suitcase.
You're racing.
Yeah, exactly.
Chasing your dream.
Exactly.
You know what's interesting is you said the enormity of the United States, and I don't think about it because we have so many dirt tracks that you can drive 45 minutes anyway, see a dirt track. Indianapolis Motor Speedway's here. You can drive west and get to St. Louis, and they have gateways right there. We've got road courses in Watkins Glen. What is England like? Are there places that you can grow up? Is it all karting? Is there any dirt tracks? What's it like in England compared to the United States?
There is, and I mean, I'm a big motocross guy, so I ride dirt bikes quite a lot. And
I ask you about that. I noticed that on
your
Instagram.
I love it. But so I always look at the US as like, for me, US is the home of dirt bikes, right? Like, and we have places to ride in England. And there's tracks where you can go practice usually it's on a Wednesday or Saturday or a Sunday. But like in the US, people can have a track in the back garden. You can build your own track, and there's space to do that. Whilst in England, like trying to, even if you had the land and you had the ability to be able to build a track, to get planning permission for it, and for it to be safe to the point where you could run bikes around there and not feel like somebody's going to break into your garage and steal everything is difficult to do. Whilst you come to the States and like these people have big ranches and all kinds of stuff, so.
Plus, in England, you got Harvey shooting clay pigeons, so you might get shot.
Exactly, you got to be careful when you go.
I mean, does he even know the difference between clay and?
So it's just you guys. From that perspective, I love the fact that in the US, it's easier to do stuff like that. Like you can have land and do stuff with it. I think in England, it's pretty difficult at the minute, and it's getting harder and harder. Obviously, with they're not making any more land, right? And it's only so big.
The Brits have invaded the States, and also right here on The Skinny. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back on the other side. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. Welcome back to The Skinny. It's a damn shame that you just missed all the greatest action during the commercial break because we had some great stuff here and we'll never get it back. I'm sure Carl recorded all of it. That's the way he rolls. So once again, we have a couple of guys here from the UK. We have Shaggy from TRD sitting alongside Jack Hawksworth. And Shaggy, I want to go to you here for a moment. I really do want you to tell me the title, your official title, I guess, but I always view you as more of a data acquisition guy, a guy that gathers all the information from the race car, and I've seen you take it to some pretty far extremes. Certainly in NHRA, you go out, you analyze the track. I know you brought a lot to the table in terms of traction at the track and looking at the rubber and the lanes and stuff that were there, you did what you do. You take it to another level. But what is your official title at TRD?
Yikes. I'm not even sure I know, Ken. I think it's Senior Manager, Team and Engine Support. And, of course, so we have a traveling bunch of engineers and technicians in NASCAR, in IMSA, NHRA. We're involved in midget racing, dirt racing, of course, and some other stuff as well. And these guys travel around the country supporting the teams, race and test events, you know. They report to me, but we all do the same thing. We grab data from the car whenever we can. Some series allow it, some don't give us as much. We analyze it, try and make the engine run better. And we've also spent quite a bit of time seeing if we can do something with the car as well, because we also have a chassis department now in North Carolina. So we got lots of tools and lots of squiggly lines for sure. And you can. It's all. Everyone's got data. It's what you do with it. That's the trick.
And of course, for the fans, let's give them a little idea about your history. When did you first get into motorsports? Dating back to what? And you were clearly in the UK whenever you first got started.
Yeah. So I started. I left school at 15 to do an apprenticeship, which they really don't exist anymore. An engineering apprenticeship at a diesel engine company in Peterborough called Perkins Engines. Did a 5-year apprenticeship, mechanical engineering. Learned a whole lot of stuff, and of course, there's engines around. That was part of their business. So I went on to dyno cells and did some engine development on diesel engines. This is all late 70s. Early 80s. And then around, I think 83, I took a job at Hawksworth in the UK, of course, a top Formula 1 racing team back then. Race engine manufacturer back then. They wanted to build a new dyno setup to take production-based engines and turn them into race engines. And I actually built or helped build a couple of dynos there. And we started doing work for anyone who wanted their engine to be a bit trick. So Mercedes, I think, was one of the first engines we worked on, the WA, on that, the 190E Mercedes. So that was mass-produced. And we did a Cosworth 4-valve head. And then we did a whole lot of stuff. A lot of it came to America as well. We did some Pontiac Iron Duke engine, Pontiac Fiero V6 in GTP and GTO. And, of course, Formula 1 was the big deal for Cosworth then as well.
So I remember this video that our good friend Shane Tecklenburg had posted. He was working on one of the older F1 cars. Mm-hmm. I think it was a Cosworth power plant. Maybe incorrect on that. But it was one of the first turbos that had, I think it had adjustable vanes. Is that what he was working on?
Yeah, probably, yeah. So that was the little 1.5 liter.
Was that before
V6.
Or after you?
No, that was,
that was
84, 85. It's at the same time I was
you.
there, yeah. I didn't have anything to do with that, the little butterfly deal, but it was kind of cool, yeah. That's when Keith Duckworth was forced to do a turbo engine when he just wanted to stick with a V8, normally aspirated.
You've done so much. Did you realize what you were doing at the time? Was it just, obviously it was a labor of love, but as you're working your way through,
as a young man, you're just scrapping, trying to move up the ladder.
But when did you realize, hey, I've made it?
I didn't. I don't think I have, actually. No one ever makes it. It's I enjoy it. It's a hobby more than anything, and they pay me for it, so it's great. But, I've just been lucky to get involved in a whole load of good stuff, and certainly coming over here in the 90s to work with Toyota in the IndyCar program, or Champ Car program, was an absolute blast, because my first race was Michigan, the US 500, and I've never been to a big super speedway, and I stand there and watch these cars go by, and
what year was that?
I just can't believe it. So that would be 97.
Oh, yeah, it was a few years after that. I actually hosted that with Larry Rice on the international feed, but it probably wasn't till the early 2000s.
That international feed was in Portuguese, if I remember correctly. You did a
which
great
is why
job.
nobody yelled at me, because nobody could understand a word I was saying. So,
how many years did they do the US 500?
Yeah, that's a great question.
The first one is the only one that I remember.
That's the one Vassar
96, where they had the big shunt light
start.
coming on the start of the race, is the one that I remember. So if another one happened, I remember that day because it was a pretty big deal. The split and the US 500 was happening before the Indy 500. So of course everybody is waiting for the waiting for the US 500 to start, and all eyes are on the TVs in the garage areas, and they had that massive crash. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, and I wasn't necessarily referring to the length of it more. I was just referring more to Michigan. But, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, it went on until 2000 at least, because Toyota ended up with Chip Ganassi and Montoya driving, and we won the US 500 in 2000 or 2001 maybe. He had a great scrap with Michael Andretti, if you remember that one, when we had a secret in our pocket and we didn't tell Chip Ganassi until the last 10 laps that he could use it, which is a certain position on the dash switch. and Montoya gets it down a gear and goes on and wins the race.
How great was Montoya?
Oh, as a driver, yeah, awesome. One of the best I've ever known.
Off track?
Yeah, I don't know him that well off track.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, you've been in a lot of cool stuff all along the way. You were part of, you mentioned Ganassi. You were part of their 24-hour wins as well when they were running Lexus Power.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they had good times back then, with the little Lexus engine. Yeah, we need to go back there and win again. How about this, Jack?
That's the plan.
This next year will
trying,
be good,
aren't we?
Yep, we are trying.
Digging.
Are you letting something out here on the skinny that we should, I mean, is there something?
No, we're going to race the 24 hours again with Jack in January, yeah.
And a DPI?
We're going to race in IMSA, aren't we?
Yeah, be in IMSA.
IMSA series.
And a DPI?
No.
That was a good diversion. You got a shot at being a politician, dude.
Well, we the RCF is obviously the main focus for the team and for the brand at the minute. So we've been trying the last 5 years really to win that race, and we kind of end of this year coming into we changed the team a little bit coming into this season, and I think we've got a really good base now to attack it next year, right? That's got to be the goal, try and win that race.
And compare the 24. Is it what would you compare it to? Is it like the Indianapolis 500? Is you have to be at the right place at the right time? Is it attrition? What is it with that race?
My opinion is I'd say it's different to Indy. I mean, a lot of stuff's different about it. The whole approach to the race, the whole build up to the race is different. The 500 for sure, you need to be in. I guess the first kind of part of it, that first 3 quarters, it's kind of similar in a way that you need to put yourself in position, right, to be there at the end, which is kind of similar to the Rolex, really. The first kind of 18, 19 hours are just finding your feet and making sure you're in position at the end with all the parts on the car so that you can go racing. The difference, I would say, is that, like, a lot happens at Indy, but generally the faster cars will tend to move forward and the slower cars will go back, whilst at Daytona, especially with the way the rules are with safety cars and things like that, and with just so many cars out there and racing for so long, it really is, I think, just surviving and getting towards the end of the race becomes even more critical.
I know you have
outright performance.
You have other drivers you drive with. Is it fatiguing mentally? I mean, you get to sleep, but is it still... You get out of the car, you get back in. Things obviously change day to night. Conditions can change.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, people ask me this a lot, but it's amazing what adrenaline does, right? So, of course, if you're up for 24, 36 hours or whatever it is when you do like a race like that, when you're out of the car, for sure, like, it can be, you feel drained, but the second you get back in the car, it's like a light switch and you feel great again. But the hardest, that is hard. The hard thing about Daytona or just endurance racing in general, like the longer races, is... for a driver anyway, you go from when you're doing your stints being in a hyper-focused situation where you're all in, just like you would be in an IndyCar race. You do an hour and a half, 2 hours in the car, but then you get out of the car, you stop, and then you have to, I guess, wait for the adrenaline to wear off, calm down and stuff again. Then you have to gear up again a few hours later to do another effectively IndyCar race, right? So it's the fact that you go out there in these long races and you effectively do the same distance as you would in like a sprint race or in a series with only one driver, and then you've been able to, I guess, take yourself away from the competitive element when you're out of the car, because at that point you can't help anymore, right? You're out, be able to switch off, relax, and then gear yourself up again to go later in the day. That side of it is mentally quite taxing, because a lot of guys who come into it initially, certainly I did, my first few endurance races, I would come out of the car and then I would want to sit on the pit stand and kind of watch what's going on. And really at that point you need to be, you need to kind of take yourself away from it, relax and kind of gear yourself up to go again. But it's difficult. It's different in that regard.
It's got to feel awkward for sure to just walk away from the team in the middle of a race and try to go relax and then come back and get inside the cars. So we'll take a quick break here. Once again, we'll be right back with some more questions for Two the Best.
This segment of The Skinny has been brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 Mud Terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today.
This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. Welcome back to The Skinny. We have a couple of great guys sitting here alongside of us. As a matter of fact, Jack Hawksworth busy kicking over cups here and spilling stuff all inside of the studio. Rico will love that. No stains, pal. Don't worry about it. And, of course, Shaggy sitting right alongside the track dude, Michael Young, as well. Will join me here. Hey, we were talking about the 24 Hours of Daytona, and I don't want to focus on it. I mean, you gave us some great stuff, but I'm really curious if you could put it into percentages. And Shaggy, I'd really like your perspective on this as well. As we look at a young driver who's in there scrapping, in terms of percentages, how hard do you drive the car from lap 1 to the last lap? And then for you, Shaggy, what I would ask is, how hard do they drive the car from lap 1 to the last lap now in comparison to the early 2000s or mid 2000s? Did they have to back off a little bit more? Because it seems like a freaking full-on scrap from lap 1.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, the cars are so well built now, and everybody's on top of. They're so reliable, right? And that just means that everybody ends up. You have to push because everybody else is pushing. So, yeah, there's a bit of, there's management in terms of brake management and tire management, just like there is in any series, right? But, for
fuel
the most
management,
part,
I mean, yeah, that's going to help you, take care
sure.
of brakes and tires.
Really, the first kind of 16 hours of the race, you're really just trying not to have a massive screw up. So you everybody's just following basic strategy rules. You're not trying to push the fuel to the absolute limit. You're not trying to... hopefully not trying to go off strategy from the leaders at that point. Everybody's just trying to do the basics right and stay on the lead lap. It's a bit different to Indy because at Indy it's only a 3-hour race, right? So you're already beginning to look at the end of the race as soon as the race has started. Daytona 24, I'd say you don't really start looking at that stuff, in my opinion, until you're kind of 16, 17 hours in.
Gotcha. So Shag, how hard did they push them back in the day when you guys were winning these things?
I mean, when Lexus and TRD started with in Grand Am, 2003, we did some testing, and the cars were just pure and reliable. There's a Fab car, Crawford and Riley's, and they wouldn't last a 24-hour race unless you nursed them. So they really weren't sprinting for the first 23 hours. If you got a car left at the end of that, off you go. By the time we won some championships there with Lexus in 2006, 7, and 8, with Chip Ganassi again, to me at least, looking at lap times, they're on it. I mean, we're not hanging around, we'll be all right next couple of hours. I think they're really on it. Now, for you, because you're a driver, you probably just feel like, this is 90%, when for most people it's probably 110. But right now, I think these 24-hour races, because the equipment can last, or should do, I think they're all sprint races pretty much.
So give us some perspective. You're in the engine side of this thing. You have computer-generated dynos, and you literally put one of these engines on a dyno on a computer-simulated Daytona track, if you will, or any track for that matter, and that computer will run that engine through upshifts and downshifts for 24 hours.
We have done, yeah. We don't need to do it every year. Once we've got, we don't change the engine; it's homologated. So we did do that initially with this engine, and it's an AVL dyno. It takes the actual data from the car and basically back reverses it and runs the engine. The motors drive it when it needs to, and obviously the engine drives the dyno when it needs to, and for 24 hours. And I don't know, quite a lot of fuel as well goes through these things.
And then obviously you tear it apart whenever you're done, and you analyze what's going on in there and make better whatever needs to be better, and leave everything else alone.
Fix problems is a deal, and unfortunately you don't find a problem until the racetrack. There's something about it. The dyno doesn't get shaken around and stuff. It's all different. The dyno's all controlled cooling system. The car, someone's got to fill it up and cap it.
Well, and the
There's
engine's part of the chassis, right? I mean, so it's tweaking and feeling stress.
So it's a whole different deal. But, dynos are still good.
Hey, Jack, when you're racing a race like the 24, I just thought of this, and I've watched the race for decades now. When you're racing at night.
Because you're so old.
Because I'm so old, and you're still racing at night, and it rains, or you're racing at night. Obviously, during the day, no matter what speed you're going, it all becomes relative. If you're doing 170 miles an hour, it doesn't feel like it because you're doing it constantly. But at night, with lights and eyesight and just mental strain, does that change? It's got to be difficult, at least for me, especially if it would rain and you've got lights and you're driving, hitting your brake points. How difficult does that become?
I think rain is a much bigger thing than dark, especially somewhere like Daytona. It's quite well lit, and we get to practice in there in the dark before we race. So the drivers are all pretty accustomed to that. And to your point about it being kind of, the speed being relative in the daylight, once you drive enough at night, it kind of becomes relative as well. Where it becomes very difficult is if you, like you say, if you get some rain at night when already visibility is not quite as good as it was in the daytime. Especially at Daytona, nighttime is still a long way from the end of the race. So if you're out there, you obviously want to keep running at a decent pace. You don't want to give up huge track position, but also as soon as it starts raining, risk management definitely comes into it, right? You don't want to be the guy who throws it off middle of the night and wrecks the race. But at the same time, you also got to maintain a reasonable pace to get through the night and still be on the lead lap. So it's just risk management. That whole race, throughout the whole race, depending on the conditions, depending on the time of the race, your whole mindset changes. Like the risks you take with other cars, when you're following, when you're being passed or whatever, your mindset completely changes. Like you're never going to make the same decision 12 hours into a 24-hour race as you would 23 hours in. Well, you shouldn't do anyway. I mean, some people still do, but you should be, your mindset should be evolving throughout the race, depending on conditions, depending on time to go, to strategically get to the end and be in position.
That's amazing, because in my mind, I'd be like afraid there'd be a deer or some drunk guy from Oklahoma running across the track, and I'd always be like,
I know you said Oklahoma. When you said deer, I thought of Road America right away. But
there you go.
Daytona, definitely a drunk guy running across the track.
Yeah, Daytona drunk guy, Road America deer. That's how that one works. I want to piggyback. Great question, by the way, Michael. I want to piggyback off of that because all three of us, and maybe Michael was there as well, a couple of years ago, it got pretty cold. I mean, it was vicious cold, actually. I want to say down upper 30s, lower 40s, somewhere in there. DPI cars with the massive tires on them. I mean, they could barely get off pit out. I mean, just no grip on them. I was actually spotting for one of the GTD teams, and I was spotting for Shaggy, and I said, "What the hell's up with your drivers?" He hit us right square in the ass going into the East Horseshoe, but. It's because your cars could stop so freaking good and ours didn't.
That was a Lamborghini you were spotting for,
wasn't
it?
It was a Lamborghini, yeah. The car was very good, but boy, it did not stop like the Lexus stopped. But nonetheless, whenever you throw in, he talked about nighttime and rain. You brought that into the equation. Talk to me about nighttime rain, and it gets cold as well. I mean, it's just a whole different animal.
Yeah, I mean, the track conditions when the temperature goes down, especially when you're on cold tires leaving pit lane, we don't have tire warmers like some of the European series. We go out there on stone cold tires. So if it starts to drop into the 40s at night, then that's pit lane exit's very treacherous. I mean, people crash there every year, right? There's always a crash pit exit. So again though, it's not. I don't see it as that much of a big deal, to be honest, because really, should you be at nighttime when there's still 12 hours to go? Should you really be, on the absolute ragged edge leaving pit lane? Probably not. Do you know what I mean?
Does it cross your mind when you go out on the NASCAR track, you're hitting in a NASCAR 1, and you're pulling gears, and you're sailing through NASCAR 2, headed towards the bus stop in the back, and you're going near 200 miles an hour? I mean, you guys are 180 all day long down there. Does it ever cross your mind, or is it just a part of the equation?
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of it. You don't really think about it, to be honest. As you said,
as they go
relative, right?
Because they're going 3 wide, right? I mean, and the 180 mile an hour car is the slowest one on the track because the GTLM's actually terminal speed. I don't know that they're much different than what you guys are, but and then you've got a DP car on the outside. So 3 of them going by, and it's like, oh my God, I can't imagine what it's like to be in that car.
There's definitely moments where, like, you're 3 wide or 4 wide, and there's a long way to go in the race, and you're like, oh, this is a bit sketchy. So you definitely remember them.
I will ask you this. We're getting close to the end, and I want to get this in because I've always asked, and Jack Harvey always has horrible answers, and back in the day,
well, he's a farmer.
Well, correct, and Darren Manning has horrible answers. I just want to know, what is the best cuisine, and what does England bring to the table? Because you guys have nothing, really.
Oh, whoa.
I mean, what?
Yeah, I mean,
What-
so
what-
far we've established you developed room temperature beer.
Right.
The Italians have spaghetti.
You brought
I'm just saying, but
You have great Indian food, but that's
have
not an English
hamburgers,
culture. What
cheeseburgers.
is bangers and mash the only thing you guys have to offer?
Well, I would agree.
The French have fries.
Well, I would agree, right? Our cuisine is not the best, but when an American says that, I'm always like, come on, guys. Like, your whole, like, any food in America is just stolen from some other culture.
We're America.
I knew when he opened Pandora's box, he was going to come right back at us because I agree with him. We haven't originated much over here. Maybe ribs,
Chicken wings.
Chicken wings.
So
buffalo,
oh, come on now.
buffalo wings. No, started
Honestly,
in Buffalo.
when you guys come to the States after you've been home for a while, what do you long for when you get here? After you've been
Shepherd's pie,
Okay.
steak and kidney pie, Cornish pasties. Come on,
Oh,
They
I
all
gotta
sound-
get some
they
steak and
sound
kidney
terrible.
pie.
Right,
That's-
yeah.
Oh, how do you
is
not
that
order
kidney
that?
beans or actual kidneys from some animal?
Oh no, kidney, yeah, from animals, yeah, cats or whatever we've got hanging
Nothing
around.
like a little iron
That's
in
gotta
your
taste
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
liver and bacon. Well, you guys
I
eat
guess
over
when
here.
you get past the room temperature beer, then the kidney isn't bad.
right. so you just get shepherd's pie.
Yeah.
That's a classic steak.
Only if it's made with real shepherds, yeah. I mean, if you put beef in it, that's no good at all.
Oh, really?
You can't throw Ken
I
off
love
like
shepherd.
that.
I love shepherd's pie.
Right, of course you do.
I
Well, that's
do.
that's
Honestly,
cottage pie unless it's got lamb in it. Then it's shepherd's pie. Actually, it's the true story.
Yeah, and then is that lamb mutton?
It depends how old it is, I think.
No. That's not age. I don't think.
I have
think
no
mutton
idea.
Is, I don't
It's
think
England.
mutton
I
is
have
age.
no-
is
I
it?
don't know.
No, mutton's just another name for lamb.
That's all it is.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I know, Jack, you're the farmer.
I mean, I have no idea. I don't eat many steak and ale.
Maybe we should ask Harvey.
Shepherd
I mean, you said
pies.
Harvey's a farmer.
He'll know.
He knows.
Harvey's probably a big shepherd.
I ordered mutton. I was somewhere in the Midwest and I ordered mutton one time. And,
Why would
and
you
it-
do that?
And it had ground up bone in it.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's a couple parts that were pretty crunchy.
And black pudding, of course, is the star of the show.
pudding.
Yeah, you need definitely if you go to England.
Which
order
also
some-
has like some coagulated blood or something.
correct. Yeah, that's exactly what it
And
is.
that's delicious.
Serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from a pig, is it not?
No,
It-
this
is
is
Is that
why.
what the Beatles were singing about?
You know what I've always wondered why all the English moved to America, and this is why. This is why your cuisine is borderline horrible.
Kidney, steak and kidney, and
blood
blood-infused black pudding.
Yes.
Is it pudding or pudding?
Pudding.
Okay, just checking.
How dare you
What he
insult
said.
them like that? Right.
Well, I started the show off by insulting him, apparently, with Peaky Blinders. I don't know. All those little different...
It's good. I actually like Peaky Blinders, though, so I'll take it as a compliment.
Did you like that show?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen bits of it, but I like what's the guy, the head guy in it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of
I've
got
not
his
seen
haircut
it.
as well.
The closest I've got is Peppa Pig, and that's a whole another
Yeah,
disaster.
no,
It's
yeah,
definitely not. Peppa Pig is definitely not Peaky Blinders. Yeah.
It's a great series, for sure. Actually, yeah, I think you guys would enjoy it.
Yeah.
Good stuff here. It was really great to have... Shaggy's a longtime friend. Shaggy and I have known each other for 20 years, man.
Yes, sir.
So
Yeah.
glad you came in here, pal. I get it. I get your gig and where you're working. I appreciate you coming in here and showing your face here once in a while because you're a very important part of this sport that we all love, man. And you've been extremely successful, and you've really made the brand extremely successful. A huge part of the puzzle. I know you always default. I've got a great team behind me, and I'm sure it is a team, but they're following a pretty talented guy. So, and I'm proud to call you my friend. Jack, thanks for taking the time to come in here, man. I know you're busy. By the way, this show will air here on Thursday. By the time it airs, Jack will have already won here in Indianapolis as he is here racing the 8-hour. Am I okay with saying that?
I hope so. Yeah. That's what we're here for. So.
You know so. You know so.
Wish you the best of luck for sure, and keep your eyes on the GTD team. They're easy to find. It's a unique paint job for sure, a graphics job I should say. They stick out. But best of luck, and thanks for taking the time, fellas. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks for being with us here on The Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.